was in Atlanta for the cryptocurrency conference put on by Jeffrey Tucker. And on the panel that I moderated, and I say moderated only in the loosest sense of the word because mostly the panelists moderated themselves. I moderated, quote unquote, a panel with Tony Galippi and Stephen Pear from BitPay and Charlie Shrem from BitInstant. Before we went up to talk about this, I was having a conversation with Charlie because, BitInstant was like the de facto way to buy Bitcoin without going through an exchange, without having to have all the headache of setting all that stuff up. And I successfully used it, I think, twice. About 3 months ago, they went down because they determined they were out of compliance and that if they didn't shut down right away, then it was going to be a real problem for them because they just had all this investment and were looking to expand on their systems. 3 months passed, and what should have taken a week or two, they're still down from. So I asked him what happened in this situation, and he told me that as soon as they had jumped through all of the regulatory hoops to get licensed, and they partnered with money transmitters in 47 states, and then there were 3 states where it didn't require that. As soon as that had happened, then their banks all dropped them, and now for the last month, he had spent all of his time going around, and other people in his company too. They had actually had to lay off people because they didn't have anything for them to do, and he and other people within his company were going around and talking to banks out there and trying to find some bank, one bank anywhere that would give them a bank account. And this just floored me because, the whole idea here is that if these businesses are out of compliance and they are illegal businesses, so the idea to me that by bringing yourself into compliance with the existing system makes you so much of a risk that banks won't even touch you anymore.
Doesn't that defeat the purpose? It's easier to just operate illegally, right?
Well, this is the thing. So that's. I don't know if there's much of a topic here. I was floored by that. I was for sure that it was, they were having some sort of problem or something went wrong, and it was just, that's it. It's just the bank.
No, I think the real topic here is to look at who writes the regulations and why they write the regulation. Twice a day feedings, a nice brush down of the automobile, a sack of oats when the automobile gets hungry. Another analogy I like is it's a bit like the cruise industry trying to regulate the newborn aviation industry because it happens to use airports that are controlled by the cruise ships. Well, we're being really reasonable, folks. All we ask is 64 lifeboats per plane. We built this beautifully compliant 50-ton plane. It's not our fault you can't fly it. This is really the game we're playing here. At the end of the day, regulations are there for one reason and one reason only, and that's to keep out the riffraff. Let's not kid ourselves. So right now, winning the regulation game essentially means postponing being kicked out of the party.
That's clearly a short-term solution, right? That's clearly, you can't operate illegally. But how can a business like BitInstant that has so many different compliance layers where they're going through Western Union, they're going through the wire transfer system, they're going through the ACH system. Is it even possible to run a business like that lacking this sort of permission?
No.
So the game is just don't do it?
The game is rigged, Adam.
Okay.
From top to bottom.
Okay.
And actually trying to be compliant, I think, is not only futile, but it's playing right into the hands of the regulators because at the end of the day, they're really interested. Not directly, most of the regulators are really, nice people trying to do the right thing and do their job. But their entire position is framed by others in such a way as to really discourage entry into the market. So they're playing this game on behalf of the banks. At the end of the day, I think you highlight something really important. Banks control access to commerce through the control of money. That's the problem we've been trying to solve with Bitcoin. It's hardly surprising that that same problem is rearing its head in our Bitcoin businesses. Giving the opportunity to your competitors to control the flow of money will allow them to destroy your business. And banks have been doing this for millennia. And they will keep doing this until we take away control of the money.
So how does that happen in a paradigm like this? It seems like this is a real chicken egg problem because in order to get from here to there, we need these sort of solutions. We need these sort of things that have to interface with the system. And certainly, I'm sure that there are other illegal venues that could be approached in order to make that sort of thing happen. And I think that local Bitcoins, not an illegal solution, but as a solution that routes around the existing banking system, that's all great. But ultimately, if we want to see mass adoption, it has has to be easy. And that, I mean, this actually takes us on to a little bit of a different conversation. I got a chance to try out the Lamassu machines. I believe it was Aaron from Bitcoin Atlanta brought one to the Georgia event, and I was able to buy 0.08 Bitcoins for $10 cash, and it took me about 15 seconds. It was an incredible experience because it was so fast and so unlike any sort of experience I'd ever had purchasing Bitcoin. And actually, it was interesting because we saw people there. We offered a substantial discount. It was about 20 or 30% on items we were selling at the Let's Talk Bitcoin table if you paid with Bitcoin. So until they ran out of Bitcoin, people were actually going over and buying Bitcoin with their cash and then coming over and spending Bitcoin with us for like the 15% aggregate discount.
That's so convenient. It really should be illegal, but don't worry, just wait a bit.
Yeah, right. Yeah. They will, and that's the thing. Even if you could get into compliance with the regulations, which you can't because they're designed so that you won't be able to. If you manage to get into compliance with them, they'll just change them.
Yeah, you can't really get into compliance with the regulation. I think that's an important thing for people to understand. Most of these regulations are really process oriented. So that means that there is no sort of certificate or passing mark or anything like this. Actually being compliant with the regulation means implementing the regulatory process within your business in a consistent and continuous manner, and then reporting your audit results correctly. Being compliant really means trying to interpret these very, very vague and non-specific regulations that are all overlapping and contradicting, and trying to put together a process that somewhat mirrors them and avoid a lawsuit as a result. And in this particular case, that's never going to work because the lawsuits will happen. You can't really become compliant with fiat money without putting 64 lifeboats per aircraft and making a 50-ton unflyable piece of shit.
What you do is you remove a lot of the advantages, right? Because if the whole idea here is that Bitcoin is pseudonymous money, we talked about the RoboCoin kiosk. We're going to go into this topic because it's something right before we got into recording this, I was having a meeting with a couple other people who are interested in Bitcoin ATMs, because honestly, after that experience with the Bitcoin ATM, I was like, man, this, if the compliance isn't so insane that it's going to be insurmountable, then this really is the type of experience that people would use. And that's different from, like even Coinbase, we're talking about multi-week processes to set up these systems. Whereas if you have something like this available at a point of sale, it could be so easy. The Lamassu machine doesn't do any of this compliance stuff. But ultimately, what we're talking about here is identity, right? Is this idea that our current financial infrastructure in the United States and most of the world, for that matter, utilizes pull accounts, right? Where instead of me sending you money, I can authorize you to take money, but it's a taking process. So if there's an authorization to take money, that means that authorization has to be granted by a party that has the rights to do this. And if it's granted by a party that has the rights to do this, then that means you have to verify affirmatively that identity. So you have to make sure 100% that the person who is giving that authorization actually has the ability to give the authorization. So that's the fundamental disconnect between...
And that's counterparty risk. I mean, that basically just took a two-party transaction and turned it into a three-party transaction with a counterparty risk. That is the core capability that Bitcoin offers, the ability to do a two-party transaction with only two parties involved and no third-party counterparty risk. If you try to comply with that, essentially you're breaking Bitcoin and turning it into fiat money or the equivalent of fiat money. You're breaking the very characteristics that make it Bitcoin in order to satisfy those who really don't want to see Bitcoin be Bitcoin.
Is that true? I'm not convinced that's true. When we started talking about the RoboCoin kiosk and we talked about, like how it had the hand verify, and it's actually looking for veins, not at fingerprints or anything like that. And, the ID and stuff like that. Now that I've been digging into this compliance stuff, I understand why that was something that they wanted to put into these machines. When I make a purchase through Coinbase, right? Coinbase knows who I am. All that compliance stuff is dealt with. My bank account is hooked up to it. So my identity is already completely exposed there. It's not a stretch that if that's an acceptable solution, just because it makes it so much easier to actually do it, what's wrong with the solution for an ATM that does basically the same thing and is able to affirmatively establish identity if it then lets you take those funds out of the current system and into this newer system? Because the interfacing here is always going to be the problem. So long as the rule is that you must have identity associated, then cryptocurrency is flatly incompatible with that.
So that's fine. And we should really, my position on that is really simple. Cryptocurrency is fundamentally incompatible with identity-based controls and flow-based controls of money. And the solution is not to make cryptocurrency compatible with those. It's to redesign trust so that it doesn't require those, and to remove the control from the central organizations. And that is not a side effect of Bitcoin. That's the damn core principle. And you can't regulate or comply when someone's asking you to give up the very core principle that makes Bitcoin Bitcoin just to play in the party.
Is that the core principle, though? I mean, I guess that's the thing that I don't know, is I don't know if that's the core principle, or if the core principle is frictionless, easy transactions that function anywhere on the internet-connected world. I mean, I would argue that you could say both of them are.
We already have relatively frictionless transactions that work anywhere on the internet, PayPal. What it lacks is the ability to offer two-party transactions without counterparty risk, non-reversible transactions, and transactions without someone creating control. Otherwise, point is PayPal. And if we're asked to turn Bitcoin into PayPal in order to be compliant, then I'm sorry, screw being compliant.
You're listening to Let's Talk Bitcoin, the premier audiocast providing news and insights that cover the rapidly evolving world of digital money. Our twice-weekly shows include analysis of late-breaking news, updates on key technical, business, and regulatory issues, and in-depth interviews with the key people driving the new digital economy. Let's Talk Bitcoin offers sponsors an attractive way to reach a targeted and savvy audience. For more information, email sponsors@letstalkbitcoin.com.